They didn't hug me when I walked in. My stepfather barely looked at me. My mother murmured, "You came?" like I was an unexpected guest, not her eldest daughter. No one saved me a seat. Technically, I was still part of the family, but standing in that vineyard hall in Sonoma, I felt invisible. Until the sky split open and a military chopper descended for me. This isn't just some cinematic payback tale. It's about silence that cuts sharper than cruelty. I showed up to the family reunion, solo. No press, no medals, just a slate-gray dress under the weathered Air Force coat I always wore. The valet didn't even look up when I handed him the keys to the government SUV. Inside the tasting room of Redcrest Estate, the atmosphere buzzed with wine and high-volume nostalgia. My heels echoed on stone floors as I scanned the sea of familiar strangers. Mom stood beside the commemorative wall, glass of Chardonnay in hand, gesturing proudly toward a portrait of my younger half-sister. My stepfather stood beside her, grinning wide. The caption under the canvas read, "Maya Hargrove, entrepreneur, Forbes 30 under 30, 2020. No sign of me. Not even a childhood photo. I'd earned a Bronze Star, led humanitarian operations in war zones, and commanded squadrons across 3 continents. But you'd think I'd vanished after high school. I approached slowly. Mom saw me, and her face shifted. "Oh," she said, as if I'd just interrupted something curated. "You came." My stepfather turned. His gaze touched me, then drifted off, like glancing at an old coat someone forgot to claim. No hug, no "you look wonderful," no "we're proud of you." I opened my mouth, closed it. "Where am I sitting?" I asked quietly. "Table 18? She guessed. "Way in the back?" I nodded. She gave a faint smile. "That checks out." They didn't offer to walk with me, didn't ask what I'd been doing. They melted back into the laughter. I passed gleaming tables labeled Congressman Liu, Director Perez, Dr. Chow. Then there it was, Captain Elise Hargrove. No rank listed, no welcome. Just me, alone by the catering doors, my place card crooked, the napkin missing. I looked up and saw my mother clinking glasses with a socialite by the chocolate fountain. Her voice floated across the vineyard hall. She was always the quiet one, Mom said, never cared for attention or ambition. Someone nearby chuckled. Didn't she join the military or something? Mom sipped her wine. Something like that. We don't really keep in touch. That one cut deep. Not because it wasn't technically true, but because it was said like I deserved it. They hadn't just forgotten me. They erased me, and I let them. For over 20 years, I let them believe I'd faded into nothing. But I hadn't vanished. I'd been serving in places they couldn't imagine. And tonight, they'd find out just how wrong they were. I barely touched my plate. The shrimp was limp, the sourdough hard. Even the Pinot tasted like something bitter. I was folding my napkin for the 3rd time when Melissa Jung, an old classmate turned city councilwoman, appeared beside me. She held her phone, wearing that tight smile people wear before dropping a truth bomb. "I thought you should see this," she said, tapping the screen. An old email lit up, dated 16 years ago. Subject, removal request, Elise Hargrove. It was addressed to the Napa High Alumni Board, sent from my stepfather's business account. Body: given Elise's choice to abandon her academic track for unconventional service work, we feel her inclusion on the honor roll may misrepresent our family's values. Kindly remove her from future features. My breath stalled. Not just from the words, but from the weaponized courtesy. That unconventional service was 4 combat tours and classified operations across 3 continents. But to them, it was shame. An inconvenience to their curated identity. Melissa hesitated. "There's more." She swiped again. Another message, this time to the Defense Recognition Panel. From Margaret Hargrove. Subject, nomination withdrawal. Elise has requested anonymity. Please cancel all recognition submissions, respectfully. I never sent that. I never asked for silence. They hadn't just ignored my service. They stole it. erased it. I leaned back, the walls tilting slightly. The DJ queued up some feel-good anthem. Applause. Champagne. A slideshow played above the dessert station. First steps, graduations, engagement photos. New image of me. I bit the inside of my cheek, and I remembered being 17, standing in our old kitchen, telling them I'd gotten into the Air Force Academy. My stepfather said nothing for a full minute that night in the kitchen. "So you're choosing a barracks over Berkeley?" he finally asked. "I'm choosing purpose," I replied. He scoffed, shook his head, and walked out of the room. That's what they'd been doing ever since. Walking out, turning away, every time I showed up, every time I succeeded. And now this? I looked at Melissa. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. If you're reading this thinking, they did what? Yeah, I thought the same thing. It's funny how betrayal doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it just shows up in an email and quietly deletes you. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That came later. Right then, all I felt was that hollow, echoing ache that murmurs, "You were never really theirs." And for the first time in decades, I started to believe it. Dinner had barely started when the first toast came. The MC, an old drama kid turned real estate broker, grabbed the mic and raised a glass. "To the brightest stars of 2001, he grinned. "Some of us climbed ladders. Some changed industries. Anyone here secretly become a general?" The crowd laughed, light and casual, just sharp enough to cut. Up near the front, my stepfather leaned back in his seat, not looking my way. "If Elise is a general," he called out loud enough to carry, "then I'm a supermodel." The room chuckled. Someone at his table added, "Didn't she do basic training for a semester, or was it some high school ROTC thing?" My mother, elegant in a burgundy shawl, sipped her Sauvignon Blanc and added coolly, She always did love theatrics. Probably still stuck peeling potatoes somewhere on base." That one landed. The whole table erupted. Even the DJ let out a laugh. And I, Captain Elise Hargrove, sat silent at table 18 by the catering station, surrounded by people who once borrowed my calculus notes and voted me class president. Not a single one turned to correct the record. No one said, "Actually, she commands operations you'll never hear about." Not even Melissa. She glanced my way from 2 tables over, but quickly looked down. The room kept laughing, and I sat still, back straight, hands folded, expression neutral, because that's what I was trained to do, hold for me. Even when the detonation isn't from enemy fire, but from your own family's jokes. Then the slideshow rolled. Prom, graduation, college dorms. No Elise, no rank, no trace. If you've ever felt unseen by the people who should have known you best, stay with me. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happened when the uniform finally spoke louder than their silence. When my name finally appeared in a group photo from Model UN, someone behind me muttered, "Didn't she drop out after that?" I stared at the screen. My face was barely visible, back row, blurred by glare. I remembered that day clearly. I'd delivered the final speech. The standing ovation had been for me. But they zoomed in on Bryce Jennings, grinning awkwardly in a blazer 2 sizes too big. He hadn't even spoken. That was when it landed. I hadn't just been forgotten. I'd been erased. Not misplaced, not overlooked, rewritten. My parents had done it meticulously, with consistency, as if removing a blemish. And the worst part? It worked. No one in that hall knew who I really was, and none of them cared enough to ask. The night air felt sharper when I stepped onto the suite's balcony. Below, the reunion crowd gathered for cake. My mother clutched her flute of champagne, laughing. My stepfather leaned back, grinning. Bryce stood at the center of Ivy League suits and practiced smiles. From where I stood, it all looked like a movie I'd been carefully edited out of. But I didn't cry. I'd given that up long ago, traded tears for calm. The kind of quiet you build after being taught that their love has limits. That approval must be earned and sometimes still withheld. My phone buzzed once in my palm. Secure channel, Merlin status escalated. Threat level 3, requesting eyes. I stepped back into the suite and shut the balcony door. Drew the curtains. Kicked off my shoes. Then I pulled out the matte Drek case from under my hanging garment bag. Triple secretary protocol, fingerprint, retina, voice ID. The screen bloomed with soft light. The classified intel interface came alive, familiar, precise. Merlin wasn't just a simulation anymore. There'd been a breach. Global vectors. NATO compromise. And somewhere across the world, a cyber ops team was waiting on me. I sat on the edge of the bed, reached under the false panel of my suitcase. I unfolded my dress blues. Silver star, polished bars. I didn't put them on, not yet. I stared at them, at what I'd earned, at what had been hidden not by accident, but by choice, their choice. And finally, I realized silence had once kept me safe, but now it felt like agreement. I stood, walked back to the glass, and watched the ballroom flicker below. Everyone in that ballroom looked so certain, so at ease in the story they'd written without me. But the truth? While they clinked glasses and toasted Ivy League resumes, I'd been commanding operations bigger than any spreadsheet in that room could hold. I was still the fulcrum, the unseen axis on which far more important things turned. Then my phone pinged again. Encrypted voice message. Colonel Ellison's voice, sharp and calm. Ma'am, requesting extraction window. Merlin escalation confirmed. Pentagon requests your presence in D.C. by 0600. I didn't hesitate. Confirmed, I replied. The world still needed me, even if my family never would. And in that instant something settled in my chest. Not peace, just clarity. They didn't need to know who I was, but they were about to find out. The jazz band had just switched to something upbeat when the MC returned to the mic. And now, he grinned, our final toast. Let's hear it for the proud parents of Bryce Jennings, Yale grad, venture capital rising star. Applause swelled. My mother lifted both arms like she was accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award. My stepfather raised his flute like a battlefield commander. And Bryce? That confident smile, the kind you learn when you've been the chosen one since birth. And of course, the MC added with a chuckle, a little shout out to the Jennings family's other child. Wherever she ended up, laughter rolled like loose gravel. That's when it started. A sound. Low, thunderous, unmistakable. The crystal chandeliers rattled. Napkins fluttered. The wineglasses trembled. Inside, the sky cracked open to the deep, rhythmic whomp of rotor blades. A matte Declan military helicopter descended over the lawn, stealth-painted, floodlights blazing. Air churned like a thunderclap. Guests rushed to the windows, phones raised, voices colliding in confused awe. My stepfather squinted toward the glass. What in the world? The double doors burst open, wind and rotor wash flooding the room. Two figures entered, uniforms sharp, boots precise. One was Colonel Ellison. He didn't pause, didn't glance at the senators or tech founders. He walked straight past every golden table and stopped 3 feet in front of me. Then he saluted. Lieutenant General Hargrove, ma'am, the Pentagon requires your immediate presence. The room stilled. Forks halted. Breath caught. And just like that, they finally saw me. Forks froze mid-air. My mother's smile slid from her face like soft wax under heat. My stepfather's wineglass tilted, red spilling silently onto his cuff. Lou, what? Someone whispered near the dessert table. Colonel Ellison didn't flinch. Ma'am, he said, voice calm. Intel confirms movement on Merlin, immediate extraction authorized. I nodded once. Across the room, the MC lowered his mic like it had suddenly grown heavy. The DJ didn't dare restart the music. Bryce sat slack-jawed, blinking like a computer frozen on a bad connection. And then came the moment I'll never forget. A reporter, invited to cover the reunion for the local alumni publication, stepped forward. Her hand trembled as she raised a single sheet of paper. I've just received this, she said. An internal leak from the Jefferson High Legacy Board. She glanced around the room. It's an email, dated 2010, a formal request from the Jennings family, specifically Mr. and Mrs. Jennings, asking to remove Lieutenant General Elise Hargrove's name from the alumni wall. She paused, to avoid confusion about their family narrative. A gasp swept the room like a dropped glass. I turned to face my parents. My voice didn't waver. You didn't just reject me, I said. You tried to erase me. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. My stepfather stepped forward. Elise, No, I cut him off. You don't get to speak now. I turned to Ellison. Let's go. He handed me a secure folder. Chopper's ready, ma'am. I walked past the parents, who turned their backs. Past Bryce, his golden boy smile fractured. Past the table where I was never meant to belong. As the ballroom doors opened and cool air whipped around me, I heard them, whispers rising like embers in the wind. She's a general. Wait, that's their daughter? They lied about her? Why would her own parent? Let them ask. Some truths don't need microphones. They just need one moment, loud enough to shake the sky. The Medal of Honor never felt heavy around my neck. Not like the weight of being unseen. That morning on the South Lawn, the crowd was full. Press, cadets, high command, senators. Even the president looked humbled as he read the citation aloud. For service beyond visibility and for defending not just a mission, but the dignity of the unseen. When the ribbon touched my collar, I didn't smile. I stood tall, back straight. Because this wasn't about applause. It was about truth. In the third row, my mother sat perfectly posed, pearls glinting. My stepfather looked straight ahead. I didn't meet their eyes. They didn't clap. They didn't cry. But Melissa did, from 2 rows back. And so did Colonel Ellison, nodding once, a quiet pride in his stance. Later that afternoon, I visited the new Hall of Legacy at Jefferson High. My name had been restored. Not in gold, not in marble, just a small bronze plaque that read, Elise Hargrove, led in silence, served without needing to be seen. A group of cadets lingered nearby. One stepped forward, barely 20, freckles, eyes wide. Ma'am, she said, voice cracking, you're the reason I joined. I nodded. That was enough. I don't know if my parents stayed to see the plaque. And I don't need to. Because that's the truth about abandonment. Once you stop begging to be let back in, you decide what to carry and what to finally lay down. I never asked for applause. I never needed to be the loudest in the room. But after a lifetime of silence, being mistaken for insignificance, I've learned this. There's power in being seen. So if this story resonated with you, if you've ever been overlooked, rewritten, or silenced by the very people meant to lift you up, I ask you to stand with me. Drop a comment, not just for me, but for every person who has walked through life with their brilliance dimmed by others' shadows. Tell me what part hit hardest. Tell me what part gave you hope. And if you feel it in your heart, subscribe to this channel. Not for drama, not for spectacle, but because stories like ours deserve a place to live out loud. To those still waiting for recognition, you don't need their permission to matter. You are not defined by who invites you to sit at their table. You build your own. And sometimes, the greatest strength isn't in shouting back, but in rising anyway, in leading with quiet certainty, while others scramble to rewrite the truth. Carry that into your life. If you're walking through rejection, keep walking. If they erased your name, write it back in ink. If they never clapped, clap for yourself louder. And if today my story reminded you of your own, then let's make a pact. No more disappearing to keep others comfortable. I see you. I hear you. Let them feel the silence we've turned into thunder. And when your moment comes, don't shrink. Stand tall, speak steady, and know this, you were never invisible. They just didn't look close enough. Now it's their turn. Let the sky shake. Let the truth land.